I'm Heather from Here Booktubes, and today is my March reading wrap-up. In the month of March, I read 27 books. I DNF'd 7 of them, so I'm going to talk about 20 today. As always, we're going in chronological order. And if the book is available in Kindle Unlimited, at least in the United States, currently it is marked in the description. All the books are listed and linked in the description for your convenience. Believe you me, the penny I get every 2 years is not enough to motivate me to do those links. I do it for you. Anyways, moving right along. So the first book that I read was Level Up, which is Fandom Hearts #1 by Cathy Yardley. I gave this book 4 stars. This is a contemporary romance. It is game coders, and they are in a cold place that I can't remember. I think it's over by Seattle, but so it's a good winter book. They're snowed in. She is a game engineer. She feels like she's not getting the respect that she deserves, and he is a product manager for the same company. She is very introverted and is trying to socialize because she has been not socializing at all and has been told that that might be holding her back in her career. It's cute. It's sweet. I enjoyed it. It's not a new favorite from this author, but I will continue the series, and you know, it's just a good time. Then I finished The Dark Lord's Daughter by Patricia C. Wrede. This is a young adult / middle grade book that I've been reading to my kids for the last several months. It's supposed to be set in the same world as The Enchanted Forest Chronicles by the same author, which is a lifelong favorite of mine, but I didn't see any recognizable things in this book, so I wouldn't read it just for that. My 11 and 9-year-old gave it a 5-star. My 6-year-old gave it a 2-star because she said it was too scary, and I had an enjoyment level of 3 stars. But because my older kids are the closest to the target audience, this is a 5-star reviewed book on Goodreads for me. I think that that is fair. So our main character is a 14-year-old girl. She is from Earth, and she gets taken through a portal to this magical land, and turns out she is the Dark Lord's daughter and heir. The thing I really liked about this book is that her adopted mother and younger brother, who is 11 years old, go with her. So their entire family goes with her. Her adopted father did die from cancer, and that is mentioned, especially the kind of grief and trying to grip onto all the control you can that her mother kind of went through. And when they are brought to this world, everything that they have with them is brought to, but it is changed to something that is accurate to the world. So ibuprofen becomes this like cure-all, very powerful drug. The cell phone becomes a messenger mouse. The tablet that she had for school becomes a familiar with a lot of knowledge. It's a very interesting setup. It kind of felt like a setup for a series, but you can read it as a standalone. And, you know, she is the next Dark Lord, and she is trying to do her best with her own morals and ethics and what everyone expects from her. Then I read Paladins Faith, which is the Saint of Steel #4 by Kingfisher. 5-star, a definite favorite book of the year. I love the Saint of Steel series by Kingfisher. They are by far my favorite books of theirs. I think that they are their best books for romance readers. They are perfection. I love everything about them. You don't even understand. So this series follows paladins, and their god actually died, but they are holy knights, and the ones that are left alive, which is just a handful of them, work for another god, the White Rat. And the White Rat is a very pragmatic god and temple. They really go around solving people's problems. There's lots of lawyers and things. They are constantly kind of trying to fight injustice. And a spy from the first book, which is a side character in the first book, and I kind of wish that I remembered more from the first book because there was a lot that I was kind of trying to jog my memory on what they were even referring to. And I did eventually get there, but honestly, you know, if you have more memory than just you loved it and the main characters in the first book, it would be good. But so we have a spy, and then she goes to the White Rat, and she ends up with a couple of paladin bodyguards. One is the love interest, and one is like all of the other paladins' younger sister, which makes for a difficult time to try and have any romantic experience for her. I sobbed at this book. I was reading it towards the end. I was reading it and I was audibly out loud saying, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Like, I didn't understand how we were gonna fix everything. I knew that we had an HEA. Of course we have an HEA. And I was just like, I don't see it. I don't see how we're getting from here to there. I don't know what we're going to do to fix all of this. It wasn't internal stuff with the couple. It was very much external problems. But I was just like, I don't see it. I don't understand what we're going to do. So I was pretty worked up. Our paladin is a paladin who has been abandoned by two gods. And he has a lot of issues with his faith because of that, and it was beautiful the way that it got resolved. Oh my god, it was so beautiful. I don't even know what else to say. As someone with religious trauma, I'm not real big on like religious content in my books, but this just really felt like such a pure and faith journey, and I don't know, it felt very meaningful. We have more than one female paladin in this book, and we are definitely, I think, going to get their own book, so I'm very excited about that. They are such interesting side characters. And yeah, I loved it. He was just pointing me in the right direction. She's so clever and intelligent and just, you know, a master of her craft and is trying to stay alive. And I loved everything about it. Everything about it. I honestly want these books so bad. There's like 7 books and it's like, I don't want to buy 7 books. I mean, there's going to be. We're at 4. This is the final one. And this has been picked up for traditional publishing. So I don't know when we're getting them. But if you're a romance reader, a fantasy romance reader, even if you're not, even if you, like, that's not your go-to genre, the books are so good that there's just no way that you read them and are like, this is meh. This is mediocre, this is average, because it's not. It is just, like, you just can't find other books like it. If you do have any recommendations where you're like, this kind of gave me similar feelings, or I felt like this was on the same level, let me know. But, like, just easily some of my favorite fantasy romance of all time. And it is interconnected standalones. You do follow a different couple in each book. Then I read The Forgotten Beasts of Elle by Patricia A. McKillip. This is a older fantasy romance. I gave this 4 stars. I read this because of Sarah Evermotion's books, maybe. I'm sorry, Sarah. They had said that they really enjoyed this, and I really enjoyed it too. I really didn't know what to expect, and it honestly is very difficult to know how to talk about this book. It was published in 1974, so you are talking seriously throwback fantasy romance. It was very readable, even the parts that I didn't really like. I will say that there is not like a lot of romance per se, but it is there, but it's also complicated. And you have a scene where the love interest hits the main character, and he's not even really the bad guy in this scene. I'll just leave it at that. Not that I'm excusing it or condoning it, but just so you know, for a content warning. And again, like, he's not even like, I'm not telling you, but he's not even the bad guy. It's just very, very interesting. Basically, she comes from a powerful family of like sorcerers, and they can call things to them with their real name. So she has a dragon, and she has like all these mythical creatures that obey her and protect her. And I don't know, it's unlike anything else that I've actually read, and it is quite interesting, and I am really glad that Sarah mentioned it because I had never even heard of this book. Then I read Viciously Yours, which is Fae Kings of Eden #1 by Jamie Applegate Hunter. I gave this 3 stars. This is not great. I'll tell you that right off the bat. It is not great. I did read it really quickly. It is a Fae king, and he knows his Fae mate, but she's in the human lands and they can't leave their kingdom until they're at full power at 25. So he is like contacting her, and he has a best friend who very obviously wants to be his mate and is like causing issues. The whole beginning of this is letters from him to her. It is very over the top, jealous and possessive, ridiculous. The surprise reveals made me want to punch something. I was just like, how many cliche, obvious, ridiculous things are we going to reveal? Like, whatever fantasy reveals, you're just like, well, check that off the list. It was there. But like I said, it was readable. Then I read, I don't know what to talk about. Then I read Lord of the Wilds by Analeigh Sbrana. I gave this 3 stars. This was a huge disappointment for me. I don't even really want to talk about it because I don't want to bash it and I have nothing good to say. I have nothing good to say about this book. It reads very much like young adults, the way that the main character is too dumb to live, but everything drops into her lap anyways. The only reason she survived to the end of this book was because the author wanted her to. Like, so bad choices. The bad choices that are made are just one after the other after the other. I feel a little bit hypocritical being critical of some of these tropes and things that were in here because it's very much things that I loved in Sarah J. Maas. You know, so I feel a little hypocritical about being like, well, I mean, I don't know, guys. But there were some very obvious tropes, I will say. You have a love triangle. You have a human who is in a persecuted village and she can read and write the Fae language, and there is a library that the Fae have that has been cursed and no one can go in the library that is of this land, but the humans are from another planet basically. And so they can theoretically go in and not die. And since she reads and writes, they decided to send her in, and in exchange, she will have aid for her village. And it progresses from there. I wanted to DNF at the 60% mark. I'm kind of glad I didn't, just because I know everything that happened. I did skim quite a bit. You have this big finale, this big, you know, everything's coming together and we're doing all these reveals and we're having all this action. I was skimming, and that is just not good. That's not good, folks. That's a very bad sign in my reading life if I'm skimming, because I don't if I am enjoying at all. So yeah, I don't understand how this was going to be an indie release and got picked up for traditional publishing. Like, I don't get it. I'm so sorry. I feel bad. I wanted to love this book. It is not good. It's not good. Which is just devastating, honestly. I will say it's very obvious, and I've seen the author say this, the romance builds and you're going to have more steam in the next few books. The character is 21. She's not a virgin. There is, you know, a little bit of friskiness on page. So you're going to get more of that. Again, that's not like the end all be all for me. So that's not like I was like, I wanted fantasy romance and we didn't even have any sex. Like, it's not that. The character is adult, but again, it reads really YA in the tone and the writing style and the choices made. Yeah, that's honestly just, I've been looking forward to this book for like a year and I'm really not happy with the results. Then I read The Woman on the Jury, which is Costa Family #7 by Jessica Gadziala. I gave this 4 stars. This is one of her mafia books. This is an antique shop owner, and she is on the jury for this mafia guy that killed this guy for abusing and raping the mafia guy's neighbor, the dead guy's girlfriend. So content warnings for rape and domestic abuse for many characters mentioned, attacks, explicit on page. Her bodyguard, and her grandfather all have really bad injuries. And so she's on the jury for this guy. And the ex-girlfriend comes in and she like knows that the dead guy was abusive. And she's like, oh, this guy definitely killed him, but I'm not convicting him. Like, I'm not. More abusers should be dead. So she gets him off the hook. Like, she stalemates the jury and they can't convict him. And then the brothers of the dead guy come after her and she goes to this mafia guy for protection. and they fall in love, and it's just the right level of darkness, and the communication comes in like right where I need it to. Like if we drag it out longer with kind of the darkness of the relationship, I'm gonna be really annoyed, and instead we communicate and we kind of turn a leaf at that point and have a healthier relationship because of it. I do just enjoy it. Then I read Yours Forever, which is Cozy Latin Billionaires #2 by Leonore Sleaze. I gave this 4 stars. It's too slow burn for me. The slow burning was slow. And that's not really fair because the author writes slow burn and I don't really love slow burn. So it's my fault, you know. I'm the issue here. But at the same time, slow burning was too slow for me. It's a marriage of convenience. He needs a marriage for inheritance and he's willing to give her millions of dollars for it, and she, you know, is trying to revive her town. There's great kinky sex at like the 70% mark or so when they do kind of get down to business. There's no third act breakup, which I really appreciated because again, it was so slow that you needed not to have a third act breakup there because they weren't together until the 90% mark. Like truly, I love you, you love me, we're gonna make this work forever. They weren't there until the 90% mark, so you can't take 90% of the book and then break up and then, just kidding. No, and she didn't, and I really appreciated that, right? But the main character really did struggle to let him in. I thought a bit too much. Then I read The Troubleshooter, which is Norcross Security #2 by Anna Hackett. I gave this 2 stars. I read this because I knew it was going to be insta-love, fast-paced, and I needed that after the slow burn I just read. It's mediocre. It's death by 1,000 cuts, small writing errors that just slowly but surely wear away at my enjoyment. And it's very pro-military to the point where it's like, he served his country, how dare you? And I was like, But nonetheless, you have an ex-military guy who is in a private security company with his best friend, and then you have the younger sister of the best friend that he's had a will they won't they relationship with forever. She's in danger because of her friend who is the drug addict kind of stealing from the wrong person, and he's tired of waiting, and they have an instant romance after ignoring each other for a few years. So it was exactly what I thought it would be. It's romantic suspense. It's a little bit ridiculous. It's very mediocre. And I picked it up and finished it because it was what I knew I needed in the moment. Then I read The Perfect Crimes of Marion Hayes, which is Lunday Highwayman #2 by Kat Sebastian. I gave this 4 stars. This was in my trying to find a 5-star reading vlog. This was a historical romance with 2 bi characters. She is a duchess and he is the Duke's actual legitimate son, so she is not the duchess because the guy was already married. He blackmails her. They end up being thrown together and having a instant kind of connection because of their leathers, and they really are into each other, but they don't see how they would be together. This is definitely built on the events of the first book, which I haven't read. I wouldn't say it works super well as a standalone. I still very much enjoyed it, but it's definitely written with the idea that you just read all the first events of that first book and now we're picking up from a different angle at this point. Content warnings are dementia of her father, S.A. by the Duke is definitely alluded to in the past, and birth and pregnancy where she was unlikely to survive and trauma around that. She also no longer wants any penetrative sex. I don't know if I'm saying that word right. Penetrative. Penetrative. I don't know. She doesn't want that, so that is not done at all, and I appreciated the whole way that that was handled really well. This is really delightful writing. I would definitely read from this author again. Then I read an arc from NetGalley of The Good, the Bad, the Antis. Antis #3 by Jessie Q. Sutanto. 2 stars, just like the second book. Loved the first book. Did not love books 2 and 3. Might pick up Vera Wong's Guide to Unsolicited Murders because I was literally just watching Kayla at Books and Lala talk about how much she loved the first Antis, didn't love the second, but very long is like the first Aunties. This is not a romance, first of all. This is over-the-top comedic drama of generations in this family more than anything else. Never loved it. Didn't even really like it. I read 40% of this book in November and then paused it, and then it came out in March, so I was finishing it. Yeah, it just completely misses the mark for me on all the things that made the first book so much fun. So while you've got a lot of over-the-top shenanigans, a lot of stuff with the family, you're in Indonesia for this one, it just isn't good. Then I read Cravings, which is Kingstown #4 by Sean. This is the 4th and final book in this series. This is erotic romance. It's black love. Most of the books are. Insta love. This one, they are kind of switches in the bedroom. They have a chance meeting and they are kind of immediately drawn to each other. There is toe sucking, which is my least favorite thing of all time. So I really like this series. This was a good ending. Then I read Follow Me to the Yew Tree by Desiree M. Nicoli. I gave this 5 stars. I read this because of Robin at Paperbacks and Planners, who is a Own Voices reviewer for this book. And the author is also an Own Voices author. It's 87 pages. It is a historical book set in England, but the main characters are Irish. And it does have magic in it. The main character works for death, and she sees this vision of her and this guy in love, but he's marked for death, and so she is trying to save him. The hero has ulcerative colitis, and I really liked the representation. I loved the writing. It was really a beautiful, incredible novella. Then I reread Fall, which is Hold #3 by Clara Kent. I gave this 5 stars. Of course, this is a all-time favorite book. It is a caveman romance. This is a sci-fi series. One of the punishments from the dictatorship is planet dumping. So she gets dumped on this planet and she eventually runs into cavemen. And they have their own language and their own culture, and there's a teenage boy there who was planet dumped 3 years before, so he helps her a little bit with acclimating and understanding what's going on, and she has a mate there, and it is so sweet. So sweet. I love them so much. You do have content warnings for the side character has a premature stillbirth, very low survival rates of their children in general, groping, and an attack. But he is so sweet to her, even though they have this huge cultural and language barrier between them. They're so like, I love them. They're so sweet. This is just an all-time favorite. It makes me so happy. I'm so glad I reread it. Then I read Wall, which is Steelbones Motorcycle Club 4.5 by Kate C. Wells. I gave this 5 stars. I've read all of the main books in the series. I've read all of Kate C. Wells' main books. I have 2 novellas left, one in this series and one in 5 packs after this. So I'm almost at the end, and I kind of plan on reading both of them in April. Because I had so much fun reading her writing. So Wall is the brother of the main characters in the Stonecut County series, and then he's also part of the motorcycle club, so he's the main factor on how these two are interconnected. And if you don't know, the sister is also interconnected between the 2 series. So I have wanted to read his book, but I knew it was like a second chance marriage in trouble, and was like, let me wait. So basically they have a lot of miscarriages, and she has a very depressive episode and grief, and in all of that she has completely pushed him away, and he ends up cheating on her, and she kicks him out, and now it's 4 years later and she's in a little bit of trouble, and she goes to him, and he's been waiting for these years to try and get a second chance with her. I will say they got together when she was like a teenager and he was in his early 20s, which they did not have sex till 18, but they married on like her 18th birthday. So know that. I understand if you don't want to read that. I'm not condoning that at all. I'm just saying that my background, that's more commonplace than you might think. For a lot of people, that's not that unusual. Again, I'm not saying like no, it's always fine, but it's also not always predatory either. But a lot of times it is predatory. Let's just be honest about that. But anyways, moving right along. This is really interesting, watching them try to get back to each other. And the epilogue does end with the birth of their rainbow baby. So know that, whether you want that or not, that's there. And I did tear up. Then I read Hero, which is Kindle number 4 by Claire Kent. I gave this 5 stars. They're all 5 stars. Don't even question me. This is her dystopian series. And this one, she was a college student when the world ended, but she was home for break, and she and her stepfather's younger brother and his young daughter are the only survivors of all of their family this many years into the end of the world. So it's just the 3 of them surviving, and they know they can't continue to survive at this cabin for too much longer, so they're looking for options. He was obnoxious, she didn't like him, she thought he was lazy, all these things, and then of course things happen, and everyone is changed by the change in society. And then he has no qualms. He is so into her, and I'm not even gonna tell you what the line is, because if you read this, I want you to experience it yourself. But the first time they get together, they're fighting, and she says something and then he says something back, and I was like, oh my god, okay, all right, let's do this thing. I can't imagine having a fight with someone, not knowing they have any feelings for me, and that being their response. Oh, it got me. He's really into her, but she still doesn't like him all that much. So he hasn't let her know. And this is still the go-to character types that Claire Kent has, and definitely has for the series. But it was different enough that I didn't feel like we were just reading copy and paste. Their dynamic is different, and he is a little bit different, even though, again, just the circumstances have really hardened him and honed him into a survivalist for all intents and purposes, right? But they're survivors, and I just love them. I mean, I'm gonna have a good time with the Claire Kent book. It's as simple as that. Then I read Given to the Gal by Desiree M. Nicoli, the author of the U Tree one. I gave this one 5 stars. This was another even shorter novella. This was weird, but I loved it. So you have this town out in the desert, and every decade they sacrifice someone from the town to the gals. The goals? The gals? The goals. Gals. I think it's gals. Ghouls. It's ghouls. That's what it is. So the mayor propositioned her. She turned him down, and because of that, she gets picked to be the sacrifice. And she's new to town, and she's like, you people are insane. I don't understand. And then the ghoul is like, hey, I like you. Let's do this. And it was a really sweet romance. And then he's like, hey, I would love to kill your enemies for you. And she was like, okay, I've got some enemies. Go kill them. I liked it. It was excellent revenge with a very sweet romance and interesting monster sex. Then I read Stranded with an Alien Vampire by Michelle Mills. I gave this 3 stars. Never read this author before. This was Instamates snowed in together on Earth. Meh. I'm sorry, that's all I really have to say. Okay? Between the title and that, you know what the book is about. Then I read Rock Chick Rematch, which is Rock Chick 9.5 by Kristen Ashley. I gave this 3 stars. So this is Darius's book. He has been in the series from the very beginning. He was high school friends with all of them, and his father was murdered, and his family didn't have enough to survive, and so his uncle, his aunt's husband specifically, was a kingpin, and he got his aunt and him into the drug business. And also he was abusive towards his aunt, so part of why he was involved was because it wasn't as bad when he was around, because his uncle was a little bit scared of him. So they are high school sweethearts. She's 16, and she ends up pregnant and doesn't find out until after his dad dies. When his dad dies, he breaks up with her. He becomes a drug dealer, all of these things. He refuses to talk to her. It's like 3 years later, he finds out he has a child and he provides for them but refuses to be in their life. And here's the thing, you go from, she's 16 to like 33. This book spans 18 years. They love each other the entire time. They are abstinent from the time that they are together as teenagers all the way into their 30s. The only time they ever hook up with anyone is when it's with each other. And she's a single mom, even though he's providing for her in a lot of ways. The only reason that they can't be together is because he's a drug dealer and it's dangerous. And side note, while Kristen Ashley has had many a couple break up in their teens or early 20s and not get back together till their 30s, 40s, 50s, and some of the reasons are even stupider than that. I'm just gonna let you know right now. I really felt like this was a very problematic choice. Because what do you mean? What do you mean? Because he just refuses to have a family because he's a drug dealer and it's not safe. And it's like, well, they know about your sisters. They know about your mother. Like, I get that you are worried about their safety, but it's just not realistic. It's not accurate. It's not good. It's treating being a drug dealer as so much worse than all the things that the other guys in this series do, which is simply not true. And it even like talks about how wrong it is that the government treats dealing drugs as a harsher sentence than rape and things like that. But it still feels like it really played into the story that we can't be together because I'm a drug dealer for 18 years, even though we love each other. And then there was a lot of lying and behind the scenes, a lot of lying between everybody. And I just was like, I don't know, guys. I don't know. I feel like even if you take away the problematicness of you have this black drug dealer and he can't have love because he's a black drug dealer, which again, like, I don't know, I read so much black romance and I read so many romantic suspense, mafia, gang, criminal enterprise, and drug dealing books where they can find love, that this just felt really odd to me. Part of it is, obviously, he's been a main character throughout the whole series. So all the way back at book 1, he was already a character. And we know that he doesn't have this built-in family. He doesn't have this happy life, this happy romance with his girlfriend and their child. So you kind of have to have him be single for all these years because you already established in this book 20 years ago that he was single. But even so, with all the excuses that I can scrape up for her, I'm just like, this was a bad choice, honestly. Like, I don't think that was good. So yeah, they really loved each other, and they couldn't be together, and then they finally were together. The end. Then I reread The Tyrant Alpha's Rejected Mate, which is 5 packs number 1 by Cathy Wells. 5 stars, all-time favorite. Clearly, I was like, the only good books I was getting were from like Claire Kent and Cathy Wells and what's her name, Desiree M. Nicole. So I was really going back to them. There were a lot of DNFs in here as well. But I did skip the entire Rejected Mate part. Like, I started at like 30% or something, and then I only read, or mostly only read, their interactions in the book from there on out. So it is most of the book, but I definitely, skipped a lot of parts on this reread, as I tend to do in a lot of rereads. I did that for fall too. Like, I didn't start until she met the caveman. Because if I'm rereading for the couple almost always. And I already understand like the setup and the plot and stuff. So I'll do that a lot of times. And it just makes it so much more enjoyable for me to do a reread that way. But she is a disabled member of this pack, and she's very low ranking. She's a single female. The father of the alpha was the alpha before him, and the entire structure of the pack was very abusive. Women had no rights, had a lot of abuse, a lot of sexual abuse from any of the male wolves and high-ranking wolves and things. So The pack is still very bad in a lot of ways. Single women are not allowed to have cell phones. They're not allowed to leave pack lands. They, they're bottom of the ranking system, all of that stuff. But at the same time, it is drastically better than it was under the previous alpha. So this alpha, I love kind of our progression in this book, because when you start the book, you're just like, I don't like this guy at all. I don't like him. And he doesn't change as a person, but, she really explains a lot of things to him and stands up to him about a lot of things, and he ends up worshiping the ground that she walks on right after being like, you're not my mate. If you were my mate, I would know, and I don't know, so you're not my mate, He ends up worshiping the ground that she walks on, and then, as their bond forms and everything, you get to know that he just, worries about everything all the time, and he's trying to, take care of everything, and it's too much, and he's trying to, prioritize things, but that means that other things fall through the cracks and everything. It really is just done so well to where, it's so impressive to me to be like, oh, I hate you. And then I get to the end of the book and I'm like, just kidding. I love you so much. You guys are great. Keep it up. Yeah, it's just a very fun time. I don't like Rejected Mate, and this is one that I think is just excellent. So that leads us to the stats. Of the 20 books that I finished in March, 9 of them were diverse. They were BIPOC, queer, or disabled authors and main characters. Although, I don't count BIPOC characters written by white authors or anything like that. So, once again, right under the 50% mark that we're trying to hit. I only needed 10! But no. It's fine. It's fine. I was actually ahead on the diversity. I was above 50% before I read all the Claire Kent, Kate C. Wells. And I have no regrets, so make of that what you will. I did catch up on my 200 book reading goal, and then had a bunch of DNFs and fell one behind again, so currently one behind. I reread 2 books. I am ahead on my 24 and 24 TBR, but almost all of them have been DNFs, so... And I completed 6 on the 33 for 33 TBR, which is more than double what I actually needed to complete to be on track. So all in all, an interesting reading month. I really felt like a lot of it, I was just like, I want another great book. And I was doing my best to get that. I was kind of struggling to find it. So I had to go to my tried and trues, and I only have so many of them to read, so I'm running out a little bit, but it's okay. That's it. That's all the books that I read in March. Let me know if you have read or want to read any of these and your thoughts on them. Yeah, if you have not read the Saint of Steel series yet, I would really love for you to do that. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.